Good afternoon, everybody, and a very warm welcome to this afternoon's education conversations. We are getting together at a time that is tense, but also at a time that is exciting. So we are in election week, and we are also in a week that is commemorating Africa Day. The Africa Day topic of conversation, of course, is something that is quite interesting and exciting. And in particular, it also impacts how we think about the future of South Africa and Africa as a continent. So today our engagement is going to focus on the theme of Africa Day, which is educating an African fit for the 21st century, building resilient education systems for lifelong quality and relevant learning in Africa. And it gives me great pleasure this afternoon to welcome and introduce Dr. Mankodi Moetse, the CEO of Kagiso Trust, who is going to open this afternoon's session and who's going to afford you a welcome as well as a small introduction. Over to you, Mankodi.
Thank you very much, Prof. Are we sorted? Yeah. Thank you, Prof. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for a very, very warm welcome on with this early winter's day. Really just to go to the point, we are really pleased this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and really it's our honor and privilege to address you as we celebrate our rich heritage and diverse cultures. This is a really great season for our continent. It's a great season for our different countries. And we are here today to really reflect on a very, very important role that education plays in shaping the future of our continent. You know, as we engage with the education conversations, and we have been doing so for some time, I'm reminded of the words of the former President Thabo Mbeki, who put it very well to say, we must ensure that our education system equips our young people with skills and knowledge that they need to be productive citizens in the 21st century. And I guess all of us sitting here today, we can feel that weight and burden on our shoulders because our young people are facing a different future, a future that is defined by complexities of the 21st century. It has become increasingly evident that our education system must really evolve to meet the demands of the rapidly changing world. The interconnectedness across the world enjoins us to ensure that our African child is not left behind. They are equipped to meet at par their counterparts across the world in all things that pertains to the life as we see them today. So today really is about grappling further again, as we've been doing, with what kind of skills, what kind of knowledge, what kind of a mindset is really required from our young learners to thrive in this era of technological advancement and the global unprecedented challenges. Firstly, we must prioritize a holistic approach to education that goes beyond traditional classroom setting. And I'm pleased today that our great speakers have shown the way. And today they'll be sharing with us some of those insights. How can we do it better? This means fostering critical thinking, creativity, problem solving, and skills at a very early age. Our curriculum must be dynamic. It must really be inclusive. It must be culturally relevant, reflecting the unique experiences and aspiration of an African learner. And by doing so, we empower our youth to become active participants in their own education, ultimately in the development of the communities they live in and in the different nations in our continent. Furthermore, we must embrace the potential of digital technology. There was a time when there was a huge drive, and every time you turn, we will all be talking about digitalization, the role of technology. But we think that more should be done to really embrace digital technology to transform education. The pain of COVID-19 pandemic has underscored and foregrounded the importance of digital literacy and the need for robust, accessible online learning platforms. So the investment in digital infrastructure must not stop. We should not rest until every child has access to internet digital tools that are no longer an option, but a critical must. We must bridge the digital divide, create an environment where technology enhances learning and opens new opportunities for innovation and entrepreneurship. Equally important is the role of our educators. Never like before, where the urgency of the teacher is critical. I think as a society, we need to rethink where we afford or the level of honor and respect that we afford to our educators. We need them for this transformative journey. Teachers are a cornerstone of our education system. We need them to operate at the highest level and model the highest level of professional development. That should be a priority for all of us. We must provide them as they take the responsibility of personal agency in this space with ongoing training and support to enable them to effectively integrate technology and occupy a space where they facilitate learning that is quite different from what some of us have experienced before. So we need them motivated, we need them inspired, we need them being curious, we need them embracing the drive for lifelong learning. In addition to technological advancement, we must not lose sight of the importance of socio-emotional learning. Education must nurture empathy, resilience, emotional intelligence. Our children must learn to navigate the complexities of human relationship and to appreciate diversity and contribute positively to the society. By cultivating these values, we lay a foundation for a more compassionate, cohesive, and a just Africa. Moreover, we must encourage meaningful partnerships across the board: government, public sector, private sector, civil society. We all need to partner with our communities and our schools. Collaboration is critical to a resilient education system. So in conclusion, Prof, educating an African fit for a 21st century requires a concerted effort by all of us to reimagine, redesign our systems and not be shy to do so. Not to be shy to say, if it has worked yesterday, it might not work tomorrow. It demands a commitment to inclusively and innovate and also continue with a spirit of integrity. As we celebrate Africa Day, let's affirm our dedication to empowering our young people through education. Let's strive to create an Africa where every child has an opportunity. It's a dream we must never, never forgo. It's a dream we must cherish. It's an aim and a goal that must be with us every day of our lives, that every child should reach their potential and contribute meaningfully to the advancement of the continent. I thank you all, and may we have fruitful engagements as we usually do. Thank you.
Dr. Moyetse, you really set the scene for some really exciting conversation. So thank you so much for
Thank you, Prof.
giving us the overview. and for also allowing us some opportunity to contemplate on some of the matters we bring to the fore. But as you so rightly said, we have two guest speakers in our midst who are really in their own spaces, in their own arenas, already doing a lot in terms of educating an African child for the 21st century. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce our very first speaker this afternoon. And we've deliberately chosen people from the ground, people who are working directly with our learners in Africa. And so Mr. Peter Tabichi is someone that may be familiar to many in the audience here. He is a Kenyan science teacher and a Franciscan brother who won the Global Teacher Prize in 2019. He has been recognized widely for his dedication and his achievements, particularly for teaching learners in under-resourced schools in our sister country of Kenya. Tabichi's innovative teaching methods and advocacy for science has significantly increased student attendance, engagement, and success, especially in national and international science competitions. He emphasizes a student-centered approach, and he uses technology and practical experiments to enhance learning. He does this especially in challenging environment where resources and the digital divide is so evident. His work extends beyond the classroom, and he tends to involve community. He tends to mentor others, and as such is a powerful advocate for education as a tool for change. So with that, welcome, Peter, and please over to you now for your conversation with the audience.
Well, thanks so much, Prof. Kat Yassin, and also appreciate the opening remarks by Dr. Makodi. First of all, I really want to thank you for the, want to thank the Kagizo Trust for the opportunity to share my story. Most of all, I want to thank my students here in Kenya. It's because of their achievement that's why I'm speaking to you today as the winner of the Global Teacher Prize 2019. They are the ones actually who deserve all the praise and all the honor. So to me, they have really given me that chance. I also, on the other hand, I acknowledge the great work done by my fellow teachers here in Kenya, South Africa, throughout Africa, and even the whole world, and who are doing great work. So indeed, their great work is a true testimony of, as you are aware, of innovation and resilience. So let me start by sharing my story. Slide number 2. I have been a teacher for over 17 years, but I've been surrounded by teachers since I was born. Like my own father was a primary school teacher, and even some of my relatives. So growing up, our family lived in a mud house. I can just recall, it's just like yesterday, just outside the city of Kisii in southern western Kenya. And like many of my learners I teach today, much of our food came from our own garden. So I can remember just early in the morning, my father coming just to remind us to wake up and go to the field to work on all the weekends and during the holidays. But even with teachers in my family, let me say that education was not easy. It was not easy. My father and I had to walk 7 kilometers to and from the school every day. Actually, my father was also my teacher. And finding money for my school fees was still difficult for him because there were also other siblings. And it is the same thing I see today with my own students who continue to struggle against the hardships, even the greater than those I witnessed when I was growing up. I always knew that I was lucky, to get the education that I did. But you see, education should not be a matter of luck, just the way it happened to me. I think it should be a birthright, for every child, every single child. Slide number 3. So why did I become what really inspired me to become a teacher? I decided to become a teacher because, being brought up in the family where there were teachers, I witnessed I saw the firsthand how teachers can help overcome serious challenges that are existing in the society. And that in a way inspired me. I saw how Chandler's my father was with his students. Of course, I was also one of his pupils, and how his dedication to the community convinced me that, all of that convinced me that teaching was the most important job I could do. So they could ask me, what do you like to become? I always say, a teacher. I want to become a teacher. At one time, I found myself saying, I want to become an engineer or that, but teaching was always in my mind. And since becoming a teacher, I've taught in 4 schools in Kenya and in Uganda. But there's one thing I've seen. Everywhere I've been, I've seen the same dedication that I saw with my, the teachers who are teaching me. Teachers who wake up early in the morning, they walk for long distances, just the way I used to with my father to school, and then through rain, extreme heat, all of those. I'm very sure you can agree with me, all of this, what teachers go through. The teachers who stay after school to give students extra help, and marking books, prepare lesson plans late into night. At times they are given so many deadlines which they have to beat. It is these teachers who are helping give students, even some of the most, most marginalized parts of the world, the tools that they need in order to tackle the challenges that the world is facing. Next slide. Next slide. Every day, my students face many challenges. Many of them really come from humble backgrounds. I've witnessed a number of students coming to school hungry. They see the school as the only hope, the only place where they can get peace, never know what they are going through in their homes. And coming to school hungry is even made worse by the ravages of drought and climate change. And these students must walk each day along roads that become impassable in the rain season just to get to school. But they also have other issues. I've witnessed things like drug abuse, teenage pregnancies, early dropouts, young marriages, and all sorts of, emotional stress. But besides just mentioning those challenges, there is something very, very important I've seen. I have seen the promise of these young people, their curiosity, their talent, their intelligence, their resilience. And with great education, every child can strive to be the best they can be. But this starts with boosting their self-esteem. And that's why teachers are very, very important. And that's why in our case, or I can say in my case, I like saying in our case, we have started clubs, to allow these children to see what they are good at, be it singing or drawing, so that they can be able to grow in confidence and creativity. With this self-belief, we can begin to unlock their potential. And of course, when you see this, when you see them doing well and succeeding in life, that's what every teacher is looking for. It gives you great joy You get that satisfaction as a teacher. Next slide. In my time as a teacher, there are two things that have become very clear to me. The first one is the importance of face-to-face contact and social activities in education. And then the second one is to give students the resources that they need. So let me start with the first one, which is the importance of that interaction. And of course, this can mean different things in different situations. Sometimes it means creating school clubs, just the way I've just mentioned, for children, so that the element of play is used in learning. In my school, we have set up science club and a peace club to bring diverse communities together. You know, peace, you need to have peaceful communities. To help them, you know, bring out the best in them, and also to build their self-confidence. And also sometimes it means giving one-to-one tuition to the students who are struggling after school because they don't all have the same, they don't have the same abilities. They have different, they are gifted differently. Or are going to meet their families to find out the difficulties that they are facing. So it's not just meeting them here at school. So at times you get concerned, or the weekend or the holiday, you spend your time just visiting one or two families. Throughout my teaching career, I have seen that many students have diverse range of learning needs, not least because of their different backgrounds, which means as a teacher, you have to be creative. You know, you can't just witness all of this and just going to class to teach. You have to be creative, you have to adapt, and you know, you have to think on your feet to get the best out of a student. Next slide. And then now the second one, which I talked about, the resources, you know, being able to give students the resources that they need. For years, I used to teach in my school. I've gone to a number of schools, but the current one, when I joined there was only one computer. And it's really very, very challenging even for myself and the other teachers. No internet, or very poor internet connectivity. But even so, I try also to ensure that my students are given the resources they need. But at times you get, at times you don't. At times you have to use your own get into your pocket using your own personal funds to ensure that they, at least you can provide for them what they, you know, what you can. In the past, I had to go to the internet cafes to download materials onto a drive so that I can use it offline later in class, because to them, technology at times it's challenging to access that. This has been very time consuming. You can imagine this, when you are supposed to be enjoying over the weekend, you know, relax and going for your leisure, you are out there in this downloading. That's what I used to do just a few years ago, just recently. But it paid back. It made a big difference to how quickly my students could learn, especially in sciences, because I'm a science teacher. I teach maths and physics. It has also helped them to become more curious and ambitious with their school projects. Next slide, please. Education is not just about academic success. It's not just about what I've been talking about, just teaching classwork and telling them about the formulas or whatever. I teach mathematics, talking about trigonometry. It's not just about that. It's beyond that. If at all you are going to develop these people to become, you know, responsible citizens or who are self-reliant. It means doing much. It's about also letting these students learn about the values of the community and harmony, because later on, they are going to they are going to be the leaders in this community. Communities and children within them best succeed when people come together. So our Peace Club has helped to unite children from 7 different tribes by getting them to participate in activities such as tree planting and games and sports. So working on scientific projects has encouraged teamwork and common purpose among our students. When I see them together, that convinces me that there is always potential for unity in the young people. Next slide. And I'm so proud of everything what I've seen my students, able to achieve. Like I've just said about science clubs, like in the year 2019, our students, I was their mentor, their patron in science club. They were able to win, get a recognition from the Royal Society of Chemistry in the Kenya National Engineering and Science Fair, whereby they were able to come up with a project that generates electricity using, by harnessing animal waste products. And then the following year, 2 of my students also won an award at the Kenya National Engineering and Science Fair for a device that allows people with sight and hearing impairments to be able to measure the length of an object. In the year 2019, which is actually the same year I won the Global Teacher Prize, they were chosen to represent Kenya at the prestigious Intel International Science and Engineering Fair in Phoenix, Arizona, where they won the UN Sustainable Development Award. Just from the village, you remember where I teach is the school is in a rural setup. It's a very humble background. From that kind of rural setup all the way to the international, competing with students from the top schools in the world, and they were able to win in their category. And it gave them a chance to step on a plane for the first time, just even for myself. The moment I won the Global Teacher Prize, that's the first time I was able to step on a plane. And students like them are the future of Africa, who have shown great potential. And I believe that science and technology can play a leading role in unlocking the potential, because there are so many challenges facing Africa and even the world. And I believe that with the scientific innovation, we can be able to address all this. Next slide, please. Winning the Global Teacher Prize has really brought so much, which I'm not able to narrate because of time. I'm only just going to say a few things. I started by saying that there was only 1 computer, but right now we have so many computers. We have seen so many people coming to give such a support, and we now have full internet and the Wi-Fi and all of what are more classrooms and more support from the government, more support from many stakeholders. And we have seen students getting scholarship, and both here in Kenya and even abroad, and more partnerships. Myself, I've also been able to get more recognitions by United Nations. I've also received IMSA Award, Commonwealth Outstanding Teacher of the Year 2022, Moran Order of the Burning Spear in Kenya 2020, and so many others which I'm not able to say here, and because of time. However, I want to say that these recognitions and awards do not recognize me, but recognize the great young people of Africa. The prize, this award is a recognition that, of their great potential to make a positive impact in the world. So it gives them a chance. It tells the world that through innovation and resilience, they can do anything. As a teacher who has worked on the front line in education, I've seen the promise of these young people, and also the determination to defy all the odds to be the best that they can be. And you can all agree with me that Africa is a continent bursting with great promise, which you can test in the air from the remotest village to the largest mega city. And Africa's young people will no longer be held back by low expectations. will produce scientists, engineers, all sorts of people you can mention. And getting there will not be easy. It will take time, commitment, innovation, resilience, name them, all of that. There will be growing pains along the way for something to be achieved. But with improving, having quality education, standards, we can finally have the chance to make our hopes a reality. I really want to appreciate this chance to share my story. Thanks so much. That's the end of my presentation.
Wow, I must say that I'm sure that there are many, many in the audience that are sharing their claps. And I'm sure, guys, if you want to put your emoji claps for Peter, I'm sure you can do so right now. But Peter, your incredible story really leaves us very, very, very inspired. And I like your statement very much that African children will no longer be held back by low expectations. And I think that is really it. It is the conversation that we must have. And it is about, as you say, not just complaining about the lack of everything, but to see the future in the generation that exists. I also like the idea of the holistic education and how children can be unified. They can be unified in communities and how they can work together and play together in a way that supports the community and supports that unification. So I'm really, really excited by your conversation and with your message of hope, because in seeing all that you've achieved, besides the global prize, we really feel inspired that this can happen in every school across the continent. And so we thank you very much for that conversation. There is one person who has left a comment or a question in the chat, and I wondered before we go on to the Mentimeter exercise, whether you'd like to respond to that question. So Rowan Thompson asks, is the current education system in Kenya considered comprehensive, including vocational training, or is it more aligned to academic achievement, promoting progression to universities? In other
Please,
words,
may you repeat the question? I'm just trying to look for the question. But now I can just listen. Yeah.
So the question that is being asked is the education system in Kenya comprehensive enough to include vocational training, in other words, more practical training, and that schools are not gearing up all of their learners only to enter university? So in many African countries, including South Africa, that's been the case. We all selling our children that false dream: go to school, work hard, and you'll likely get to university. And for most of our children, that is not a likely trajectory. So the question that Mr. Thompson is asking is whether vocational education is something that is given attention in Kenya.
Thank you for the question. That's a very good question. Actually, we used to have the more like knowledge-based education, which was commonly referred to as 844 system. But right now we are shifting to the CPC, that is competence-based curriculum. The other day I was reading about the in South Africa, I think you had something similar around competence-based outcome-based educational. Yeah. So that's what we are trying to have right now, which is actually vocational, having a good vocational, those foundation is at the heart of that, because it's not just about you do well, does well, and then go to join the university, and then it's just about just getting the knowledge. It's also ensuring that these young people acquire skills and competences that will be able to make them fit in the society. So they like now in the primary, they get all the whatever the knowledge, and they do practical activities. And then as they proceed to the middle school, that's now the upper primary and the junior and secondary, they start thinking about their careers. So you'll have teachers. So we mentor them based on what we have identified. When we mentor them, we are able to see their, what they are good at. And then when they join senior school, by that time they have already identified their careers. They'll know that they'll be able to join, they'll do STEM, they'll do this, they'll be journalists, or they do whatever. And then that's what they'll pursue later on in the university. And those who will not be able to continue, there is also a vocational, we also have the vocational institutions, which we also give them much support so that those who are not maybe, well, could be low achievers or they are not okay, they just want to go to the vocational training, we really nurture them to follow that route. So I can say yes, it's really supporting them to acquire that, a kind of holistic education. Thanks so much.
Well, thanks for that, Peter. And of course, Peter, if you look in the chat, you'll see many, many people from the audience, including our very own almost Dr. Mooladi, Linford Mooladi, who you may know, who is also a science educator, and he's a big fan of your work, as it seems. So there's many words of praise in the chat. So without further ado, as we always do, we want your voices in the conversation from the audience. And so we have a small Mentimeter exercise that we'd like you to engage with. Lesedi, I know you put the Mentimeter link into the chat earlier on, but it might be worthwhile just putting it in again, please, if you don't mind. And the question that we're asking in that Mentimeter this afternoon is, what are the steps that we can take to ensure that African students are prepared for the 21st century? So given Peter's conversation around how we must avoid these low expectations, how we must develop holistic individuals, how we must unite them in learning, in play, in communities, etc. Think about what are the ways in which we need to prepare them for a world that we're not even aware of what kind of disruptions will emerge as that world progresses. What do we need to do so that African children are prepared for that world? If you can, in the meanwhile, engage in that Mentimeter exercise, it would be good to just get your voices in. But in the meanwhile, it gives me enormous pleasure to introduce the next speaker. As you engage with Mentimeter, I'm just going to introduce our next speaker, who is very special to me, partly because I have had a long engagement with her myself. I have observed her work, and I am very, very excited for the prospects that she brings to our teaching fraternity here in South Africa. And that is none other than Ms. Penyo Cocker, whose presentation this afternoon is about empowering rural education through technology and community involvement. Now, for those of you who've not met Penyo before, she's a dedicated teacher based in Limpopo, South Africa, who is known for her innovative approaches to education. She particularly leverages technology to enhance learning in rural schools. She actively promotes professional development and capacity building amongst her peers. And as an HOD right now, she also mentors other educators to adopt new methodologies so that they can improve their teaching skills. Penyo's work extends beyond the classroom. She is actively involved in the community, and she creates a supportive and holistic environment for her students. She advocates for equitable education, and she is involved in a lot of school development projects that ensure her school's engagement and that learner performance is at the forefront of all that they work on. She particularly inspires her students and gets them into practical skills as well as critical thinking. She is committed to her students and the community and is a key voice in discussions around the future of education in under-resourced areas. So with that, I very warmly welcome Ms. Penyo Cocker, an inspiring teacher who is also an award winner. Let me not forget, she is also, it's not mentioned in her biography, but she is also a national award winner. I can't remember the year, but again, from amongst our midst, another inspiring voice from the ground. Over to you, Penyo.
Thank you so much, Prof. And I'd like to greet everyone. My name is Penyo Cocker. and I'm delighted to be in this platform. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Let me share my screen. All right. So all right, as I introduced myself, I'm Penyo Koga. I'm from a small township called Mohopong, which is formerly known as Nabomspruit. My main focus on my presentation will be on the two schools that I worked at. I'm gonna start with the cases at Dugubu Primary School, where I started off teaching as a CS1 teacher. It is in Limpopo, and I had learners who were coming from underprivileged homes, and most of them were taken care of by their grandparents, their aunts, uncles, and some were from childhood homes. Some were from the orphanage homes. And the second cases that I'm going to be talking about is from the current school where I am at Batokwa Primary School. I'm working as a departmental head. Batokwa Primary School is in Gauteng province. So I have the same situation as Dikubu Primary School, where I have parents who are lacking skills to support the learners. So we have issues where we always have problems with learners who come back to school without doing their homework. If you give them work to do at home, they would come back having done nothing. And those are things that I'm going to be talking about here. So the first school, Dikubu Primary School, which is a school where I went to in my primary level. At the school, I had to now stay with the learners after school to do remedial sessions. The reason why I did this was I had learners who were struggling. They didn't get support from home. And due to that, they would come to school demotivated. They would be disruptive sometimes during lessons because they had no interest, because they thought they could not do anything in class. So after school, I would remain with the learners and do extra lessons. But because I had more learners who needed support, I now worked together with a community member whom I was giving money to. I was actually funding these learners so that she could do an extra work with them. She would teach them reading. Her name is Miss Situsa. So she was a retired teacher. She would do extra lessons with these learners after school when I had another group to deal with. Now, because of that, children now started gaining more interest in learning because they could read, because they could understand lessons better. Now they paid focus in school, during the lessons, and it minimized disruptions. And I would also now teach learners real life situations. We did landscaping, school gardening, taught waste management, energy conservation, water conservation. We also had a school tech shop where we use it to generate money for the school, because the NSNP, the money from the department, the norms and standard is not really sufficient to cover all the school needs. So the tech shop would use it to generate money, but I would also assist the school to enter into competitions. There are competitions that are out there where you can get funds. So the other one that we won, it was from LEADED, where we did the gardening, the thingy, the topic that I was talking about, the topics I was talking about, the landscaping, school gardening. Yes. So we did all of that, and the learners were the ones who were presenting the work, and we won money. And I also assisted in the school gardening competition. I mean, the school NSNP competition. It's about nutrition and gardening also, and we won money. So with the money, we were able to improve the garden. We were also able to improve the kitchen. So this is the picture of the people that I was working with. It was the community members, the school management team, there were educators also, the learners were at the forefront. So now I was also teaching learners even outside of the classroom. So I had a learner who got hit by a car and he was hospitalized for quite some time. So this was not even a top learner, but he was on average performance. But my concern was he was left behind. So when the parents reported to me that the child was in hospital, I sent him books so that he could learn from hospital when he was able to, and I would now update the parents on the activities that needed to be done with him. And they told me he was crying, he needed more time, he needed to be at school. He wanted to come back to school actually because he was saying he's missing out. So I took it upon myself to now travel and go to hospital and assist him in hospital. So this is me assisting him on the hospital bed. The mother was the one who took the picture and the father was there. And yes, so he now came back from hospital. He was on a wheelchair. He couldn't go to school still, so he was at home. I would go home and teach him. But then I realized time that he got was so little, it was not enough. So I approached my school principal, Mr. Mahlahlani, and my former principal, I spoke with him and we now involve the community so that we could have them develop ramps at school. So the learner was able to now come to school. I would fetch him with my car. When we got to school, then I arranged a buddy assistant for him, a learner who would take care of him, walking him around the school and also to the bathrooms. So the learner was now able to come to school and he was happy until when he was now able to walk on his own. Yes. So these are the pictures of the work that the CWP were doing. And I also coordinated sports, particularly athletics. Reason being, I joined Fitness for All Athletic Club, which is in Modimolle. So I joined because I wanted to keep myself fit, but I saw it as an opportunity to motivate my learners because I had learners who were talented, who would do great during school athletics. And unfortunately, when they could not proceed further around March, they would now stop, athletics stopped, they would wait for the following year to start athletics again. So I spoke with I spoke with the people from the club. I asked them so that we could affiliate the learners. So I registered them and we were able to train and also to motivate them to do great in their athletics. So now athletics for them was done from January to December. So they enjoyed doing it and it made them to improve in their skills. So every year when they did athletics, they would even go further. I have learners who reported to me after I came to Gauteng because I'm no longer working there. I have learners who kept reporting to me saying they going up to the national level. And these learners, when they were part of this team, I was encouraging them to keep themselves away from gangsterism, to walk away from the groups that were making them do bad things. So I would encourage them to also do better academically, to have a balance. So these learners got motivated to do that, and even at school, I asked them that they should not have cases where they are reported for bullying or disrespecting the teachers. So these are some of the rules that I had set in that mini club. So the learners are still training even now. It's just that I have some who are now in matric, and the matric, which is grade 12, and the parents requested that they get time to do to focus on their studies. So there's just others who are continuing. Some are, because I would train not only learners from primary school. I started with my learners from primary, but the ones from high school would also join. As you can see on the picture, I even have bigger ones who joined from the high school. So I also worked with a shop owner, local shop owner, who donated school uniform to the learners during winter. He would come and bring school uniforms so that learners could be able to come to school. Now, in terms of technology, excuse me, I used my 2 cell phones and a laptop because the school didn't have gadgets for the learners. So I would divide learners in groups and give them my cell phones and a laptop. And I got the 3rd one when I entered the National Teaching Awards. I won a laptop, and now I had 2 laptops. So with these laptops, I was able to Google online games, the educational games, and give them to the learners so that they could learn more. And I would also use videos to teach them. So these learners got excited and they would focus more and they would learn even more better from the visuals. And I also use Scratch Junior. I asked them to help me to create the comics. So they were excited to do that. And one of the things that I like is that when I taught them how to, because I would teach them how to connect these gadgets, the laptop, the projector, they would do that and they enjoyed doing it. And I also helped them. I connected them through, okay, during National Teaching Awards, I had an opportunity to meet Mr. Linford Mulaudi, who introduced me to a teacher from India, whom I then connected with, and my learners would connect with his learners. So they would share, stories about each other's country and other educational issues, and they would also learn English in the process. Now, my former principal was an 18th national, he's an 18th National Teaching Awards winner. So through him, I got inspired. And because I was working with my father at the same school, I encouraged my father to also do much more work so that he could also get a chance. So my dad, because I knew he had a great story in terms of his teaching, he had a great story from when he started teaching. So I told him, you have to go on retirement with something that you leave behind. So he also entered the National Teaching Awards and he reached to the provincial level where he obtained position 2, and I proceeded to the national level and obtained position 1. And through the National Teaching Awards, okay, that's how I met Mr. Linford Mulaudi, who introduced me to Prof. Ket, and that's how I met Prof. Ket. So now moving to Gauteng, I got a promotional post and I am currently a departmental head, and I now entered the school into a competition. There was a competition about the school library. It was run by the African Research Collaborative. They are from Georgia State University. So it is run by Dr. Erica and Dr. Melissa. So when I entered this competition, I had a vision to motivate the learners and to encourage them to read, to learn to read, and to love reading. So the project it includes literacy partnerships between the learners in the US and the learners in South Africa, where they will do learning elements, writing and recording folk tales, creating digital books, recording and documenting stories, mentoring young learners in literacy. So at this moment, the learners are teaching Dr. Melissa how to read Sepedi. So they are taking a teacher position themselves, teaching her how to read Sepedi in preparation so that they can be able now to connect with the other kids from abroad and share the books they are reading. And it is really giving the learners so much joy. They love reading. Yes, and I had an opportunity to attend a teacher exchange studio event in Soweto, which comprised of the mathematics academics and the teacher educators in the US. So these are the pictures. So here in Gauteng, I also had a case where one of my learners was sick. She had a problem. She had to go to a hospital and have her appendix removed. She was also not able to come to school because of medical conditions. And knowing the learner that she is, she loved school. She loved being at school. And the parent also told me about it. And they were having problems in terms of finding proper medical care, and I stood up and assisted the family, and the learner was now able to get the help she needed medically, and then she went home. When she was home on a stomach bag, she couldn't come to school. Now I went to her home to do, this was during COVID. I took myself and went to her home to teach her from home. I brought her books. She was learning from home. Same situation with the other learner. I realized time given to her was not enough. So I tried to communicate with the department and get assistance, that maybe we could get someone who would do homeschooling full time for her. Unfortunately, we could not get to that help, but the learner, by God's grace, got better, and she was able to come back to school. When she came back to school, now we had to now take care of her because she was fragile. But I was happy. She was also happy to be at school. And when she was at home, we would also do lessons over the phone when I could not go to her. And this is one of the videos. So I was also doing those activities with her together with the teacher, because she had moved from my class to the next class, to grade 3. I'm teaching grade 2, so she was in grade 3, and I called the class teacher to also be available and do it, and she gladly did it with me. So the learner was happy and she was able to catch up on her schoolwork. So at my current school, as compared to the Gugu Primary School, at least it has a full-time library, which has a full, I mean, the library is full-time. It has books now, and it is with the assistance of the Chamberlain's family. So when you have people that are able to give to the schools, you have companies that are able to give to the schools because they love education and they have the same vision as you, and they want to see these learners learn better. So we encourage people to we encourage the schools to grab these opportunities, because they really bring good results in schools. So Anne Chamberlains is sponsoring the school with the initiative from my current principal, Mrs. Crystal Nkwana. She's a hardworking woman who makes it a point that she finds sponsors so that we can get the things that we need at school. So the full-time library, she organized the for it to be there and the books, and Chamberlains is sponsoring the project called Spell to Read to Write, where they teach learners the sounding, they teach them how to read, and then so they can be able to be better writers, readers, and then writers. And then we also have WIPS, which is a partnering school. They come to our school and donate stuff. They also read for our learners. They engage with our learners. It's a private school. And we also have Click Foundation. Now, this is where my gadgets now got to rest because of the vision that my current principal has. So there's Click Foundation, which has literacy and mathematics in it. So the learners play games. They enjoy playing games, but in the meantime, they are also learning. So, in conclusion, I'd like to say that the government does not have the money, enough money to give us everything that we need. It is my experience taught me so. So what we need to do is to seek donations and grab opportunities and to enter competitions on behalf of the schools as teachers so that we can get all these funds and improve our education. Thank you so much.
Wow, Penyo, I really caught up on a lot of your new activities and really excited by the many, many things that you're doing. But I think 2 or 3 things stand out for me, and I'm really happy to see a lot of your collaborators online. I see your ex-school principal, Mr. Mahlalani is here, Linford is here. I don't know if Ms. Crystal is here, but it would be lovely if you guys just switch on your camera so people can just see who you are, because I think you are part of Penyo's story, which I think is really, really vital for this conversation as well. Because I think Penyo, one of the things that you point out is how important school leadership is. And if teachers are given the opportunity to be able to explore these innovations, explore these ideas, find other sources and resources beyond the class, beyond what the government and the school provides, then that partnership with a very good school principal and a very good school management team, which of course you're now a part of, plays a really important role in how teachers can then thrive and go beyond the call of duty. But as you also rightly point out, and even what we know of your school principals, including Mr. Mahlatani, is that they are also people who are role models for you because they also go over and above and beyond. And in many ways, that leadership of schools in ways that empower teachers, in ways that push teachers forward, like you've experienced as part of your own mentoring, and now you're able to share that mentoring with others, is really admirable. And so I think taking into account how school leaders prepare the environment, what kind of groundwork do they create as enabling factors for teachers like yourself? And as you rightly point out, you started in a school classroom in Limpopo, you're now an HOD yourself, and how this work has grown, developed, and carried on over the years. The other thing which I really, really think I take away from your conversation is really centered around the partnerships. So I think what you mentioned in that teachers cannot do it alone, or schools cannot do it alone, that we have to find these opportunities, these collaborators, these connections out in the community, and find ways of extending bridges to them so that the school becomes part of the community and it's not just trying to function by itself. And then, of course, very inspired to hear that you were also encouraging for your father as well. And so it just shows how the work that you've been doing has not only grown, but that you have committed to also including people who the system might have written off. So if your father is retiring, why would he ever enter a national competition And again, you bring that hope that everybody has a role to play. In the chat, you will find, I don't know, about 1 million different people who've given you similar praise and who've really been inspired by the conversation that you have brought into our space this afternoon. And so, Penyo, you can go ahead and read that and maybe respond to any of the questions that are there. But before we break out into our breakaway rooms, I would like for the Mentimeter exercise to be put onto the screen, please, Lesedi, if you might, just so that people can see what the audience response is to the question of what are the ways in which we can prepare African children for the 21st century. Okay, so I think my eyesight is not very good, Lesedi. So I think there are 17 responses that I hear. Is there any way to increase the screen?
Will do, Prof. Let me just reshare again.
Okay. In the meanwhile, while we're trying to share that Mentimeter exercise, let me just check in if there's any, questions for Penyo that we might be able to address. Penyo, there are also opportunities that people have, also put into the chat, which maybe you'd want to see too. And I like what Zandile has said, that how your heart is displayed in the presentations and how your calling is to be a teacher. In other words, you're doing a lot of hard work, and I'm sure we'll agree that Peter is also doing a lot of hard work. And that's what teaching is about. It's not only about walking into a classroom and simply getting on with rolling out the curriculum and teaching the children, but it's about the hard work that you do. And I think that that's been a clear demonstration from both of you this afternoon. So what people are saying is that we need an education that develops integrated, deeply foundational, intellectual, social, emotional, and technical and technological skills that builds lifelong resilience. And I think that, this conversation around what we need to do with the education system has had so many iterations of conversation. More powerful has been the COVID experience, where we really realized that our education system has to be resilient. And this resilience is something that we have to hang on to, because there isn't a magic wand. And so everything that is spoken of there is not only about what the government must do or what the education system must do. We're not letting them off the hook. But I think Penyo and Peter are good examples of what individual teachers do in order to achieve that. I think my presentation is now moved on, so I've lost that. Sorry, Lesedi.
May I answer? I see. Sorry, Dr. Prof.
Please go ahead.
Prof. Sorry, Prof. I see Dr. Melissa is there. She asked the question, she said, very inspirational story, Penyo. How are you reproducing yourself? One thing that I do is, when I do these projects, I do them together with the teachers. So with those projects that LEADED, I have teachers on board. So teachers are given roles to play within these projects. And when you're working with them and you're giving them projects, they get to gain ownership of the project and you work together with them. So I have been fortunate to be working with educators who are willing to assist. Even with the current projects that I have teachers coming on board, the principal herself being on board and fully supporting the vision. So when you involve them and you give them roles to do, then you allow them now to follow the same vision that you have. I think when they also feel appreciated in the process, you appreciate the work that they do, and I think, I don't know if I answered.
No, I think that was a beautiful answer. And that is that how do we, when we do good work, how do we bring along others with us? And I think what you share there is the fact that to involve others every step of the way. So while they're involved in the project, they also see opportunity and they also learn from the work. And it's so good that Dr. Melissa is in the room as well. I think she also shares a passion for your work and is part of the work that you do, Penyo. So a warm welcome to you, Dr. Melissa, and we're so happy to have you online as well. So Penyo, I think you're doing amazing work, but again, I think that we also need to contemplate of how do we roll this out across many more schools and across many more of our educators who need inspirational role models like yourself and like Peter Penyo. How do we get them connected with those inspiration? How do we get them sort of refreshed and renewed and excited about the profession that they have been called to? So I think that that's kind of something that we want to hold on to as part of our conversation. And then somebody spoke of emphasis to be on scholarship rather than certification. Completely agree. This is also not only in the case of school education. And as people have pointed out, we need to think of diverse education pathways. And how do we create this lifelong learning pathway for our learners so that they continue with learning? And how do we instill love of learning in many ways? As we move into the future, we know that those disruptions are going to be the kind of disruptions that is going to need people to be lifelong learners. Curriculum reform and innovation. Education should be learner-centered. And I think Peter was a good example, as well as Penyo's work was good example of how some of these innovations were starting to happen. And I think when they are teacher-led innovations, somehow or the other, they seem to be a lot more authentic because teachers read the environment. They understand learners that they are teaching, and they're also able to then connect to those learners. Sometimes I find these wonderful innovations that float around that is supposed to be, rolled out to many spaces. But these tend to be a one-size-fits-all type of approach. And so the question then becomes, how do we empower our teachers to become more authentic in how they innovate and assess and for the work that they do? But I know that I'm also, eating into breakaway time. So, Lesedi, I wonder if it's possible for us to put people into breakaway rooms. And in the breakaway rooms, there will be a facilitator who will be in each of the rooms. And so the two questions that you're going to be working with in the rooms themselves is as follows, just so that you can prepare as we put together the breakaway room. I'm just trying to find those questions. The first question that you are going to work with is, what stood out for you when you think of the two presentations that we had this afternoon? What were the things from Pete and Penyo's conversations that actually made you sit up and think about how things can be different? How do we become better? How do we innovate in ways that are authentic? How do we get excited about classrooms again? And then, of course, what attributes should an African learner possess to be successful in the 21st century? So think about the presentations as one point of departure, but then also think about what are the kinds of things we would want for our learners. And the one thing which Peter said that really sticks with me is African children should be removed from this idea of low expectations. And African schools, for example, should also be removed from that idea of low expectations. We have a promising nation. We offer the world our youth because our birth rate is high compared to some other countries. How do we hang on to those? How do we hang on to those advantages? So without further ado, let us get out into breakaway rooms, and I hope that you enjoy the conversation with your colleagues as well as with the facilitators in the room. Lesedi, if you don't mind putting us into rooms, please.
Yeah, everyone's going to a room now.
Sure. I don't know about the other facilitators, but all I can say is wow. Wow. What amazing conversations we were able to have with people in this room. And it's really been something that we are all really excited about. It's like driven like a kind of an excitement. And so I really want to begin almost giving a bit of feedback around what has happened in the room. So just to ask facilitators, if you could just post on our WhatsApp group some of the main learnings from each of your groups while I share mine, then I can pick up 1 or 2 points from there to be able to share with everybody. So in my group, I had Zolile, Kasana, and Ntando. And it was just the 3 of us, but we had such an amazing conversation that I have just so much to share with everybody. So when you think of the 2 presentations, now these were some of the things that stood out for the 2 people that I had spoken to. And so this idea of teaching being hard work, and that this connection to the classroom, this connection to learners, and not just learners, but their families, and in particular their future. So the idea of teaching being hard work came out as one of the big pointers. Another thing that stood out for the 2 people in the presentations was about teachers who are committed to going above and beyond. Now, this is not always easy. So even though we would like all of our teachers to do this amazing above and beyond that Penyo and Peter were able to demonstrate, sometimes because of various circumstances, this can sometimes, and part of it is also a lack of motivation, because teachers get shot down, or they get overworked, or they get tired with so many stresses and responsibilities that sometimes this idea of going above and beyond just flies out the window. So the question then becomes, how do we allow them that space to be able to do that? How do we inspire them to do it? Because going above and beyond means that you really do things more than in your job description. But the one point that came out about this going above and beyond is about the desire for learner success. If you as a teacher desire your learners to be successful, even if they're in hospital or they are in some problem or whatever it is, then you will go above and beyond. Another thing which really came out as a really huge conversation was about this catalysis of change, and how teachers are custodians of hope, and how they are part of the future. Other groups, the one that was part of Patso's group, talked of passion and commitment, and how people were using their own resources, and how they were inviting collaboration, into their classrooms. And then Lesedi and others spoke about inspiring teachers and how they go above and beyond, but in creative ways. Others spoke about, investments that teachers make on their own. So they invest in ICT. Penyo's example of using her own devices when she didn't have any other option, and that was her 2 phones and her laptop, but she made it work in a very big classroom. And then later on found ways in which to enhance her digital gadgets or devices, to add to that so that her learners could have that. And then also how to use digital technologies to engage learners, to make them excited about learning, like using games and so forth. And then the idea of collaboration amongst teachers, and how teachers, enable and through collaboration are able to do big projects and to do big things. And I get inspiration from Penyo's conversation. Then this idea of digital platforms, and how these can be used to benefit our children. This was a learning from the 2 presentations. And then how do we ignite through digital spaces the interest of learners? And this again came out from Penyo and from Peter's conversation. And then of course his group spoke of education as a calling, that holistic education is needed, that we need not just teachers and schools and principals doing the work, but we need to invite multiple stakeholders. So it takes a village to raise a child is a big, big contribution here. And then of course, Penyo spoke about, lifelong learning. So teachers become lifelong learners, and when they learn, they inspire their learners to also, go forward. So those were some of the takeaways in terms of the two presentations. And then the second question dealt with what kind of attributes would we want our children, as our African children, to have? What kind of a child do we dream about when we think of an African child in the 21st century? And from this, I'm going to acknowledge Zolile, who spoke about creating warriors or cultivating warriors. I absolutely loved that metaphor of warriors. So if you think of an African child in the 21st century as a warrior who's able to go and become all of what their potential holds, despite all of the challenges, despite all of the issues. When I think of a warrior and I think of all of the connotations of a warrior, how do we give our children the mindset of a fighter? How do we get them to fight and to fight for what is rightfully theirs, but also to fight for their future? And so this concept of warrior just really sits with me. And really, Zolile, you have opened my mind to this metaphor, which I'm now hoping to also contribute to as we move forward. And then other things that came up was really centered around resilience, because in our schooling system, we can't wave a magic wand. Teachers, as well as learners, as well as parents, have to be resilient individuals. And so resilience and people with grit are the two things that are needed. And then, of course, how do we get our children to want success? How do we help people on the continent want Africa to thrive? So instead of seeing Africa as a continent of less than, as a continent of no opportunity, as a continent of failure, how do we give that hope that Africa is a space to thrive? Africa as a thriving community, Africa as a thriving continent. How do we make that happen? So from my group, those were some of the takeaways that came up. From other groups, self-confidence, self-motivation, self-esteem, all of those elements which are affective, that can stimulate and spur the warrior spirit in our children. How do we make that happen? And then, of course, we also want good work ethics and good moral ethics, which also seem to have emerged from some of the conversations. Another part that came up was about identity. How do we retain an African identity when to change and to the vision and the picture of what is the best or what is, success looks very Western? How do we help our children to keep their African identity? And how do we make Africa popular? How do we make Africa cool? How do we make Africa in vogue? How do we make Africa fashionable? And of course, creativity in our children. We know that African children are extremely creative. They're extremely innovative. They just need to be given the platform. Somebody has mentioned here to do away with the quintile system. It has been there for 30 years, and somebody's thinking that the quintile system is what divides our children. And so Peter's conversation around unifying is something that somebody has brought up. And then also about how do we mobilize resources so there's equal sharing and equity in education. Other attributes come to commitment, diligently being able to work diligently, to be able to harness technological skills, to create this idea of unity and of collaboration, but also to have a spirit of healthy competition. And then, of course, to have some humility. Other things that came up was really centered around, how do we get our learners to become excited about learning? How do we get them to develop their own capacities for learning so that in their journey of life, they are able to not only be able to use digital tools and all of the digital platforms, but that they are able to continue to be excited about learning for the rest of time. So I think that was an extremely rich discussion, and we'll definitely take all of the comments. We have it written down. We'll take all of it and we'll create some kind of a way to put it on our platforms so that people can go back to it, including the recording, but people can go back to some of these amazing contributions that people have made. And I think that my biggest takeaway is really centered around how do we create a warrior child? And thank you, Zwelile, for that conversation. So with that, it leaves us or brings us very close to the end of our time together. And I'm really feel sad that we sort of coming to closure when things are really getting excited and people's contributions are really heating up the platform. But it leaves me to ask Dr. Sadi Seyama from the Department of Education, Leadership and Management, a colleague and a friend of mine, to close the session and also to share her thoughts on today's proceedings. Over to you, Sadi.
Thank you very much, Prof. Ket. I'll use it loosely. I'm wowed. I'm coming to grips with the fact that we are very clear of the attributes that our learners, so the African learner, needs to be successful in the 21st century. But it's almost like we're missing that link. The missing link is how do we get them to be inspired? How do we get them to love learning? And how do we get them? Cassius, who was in a breakaway room, said that, what is it there to learn for? What is the worth? What is the value add of learning? Particularly if you look at the combination of a sense of hopelessness that we see in Africa. How do we as educators able to build this capacity that we see? We see from Peter, we see from Penyo, to be hopeful, to show, to demonstrate and inspire hope in Africa. And for me, it's really a question that it troubles me. It troubles me a lot, because at this point, to a large extent, there are better resources for our students at university levels. And also, if you look at schools as well, compared to, more than 30 years ago, when, we didn't have basic, school resources such as books and textbooks, etc., etc. But, what has really inspired me, as a homework is to how do I work with what I have, but at the same time focusing on how do I get students to be the warriors, as you correctly put that, because clearly they will not wake up one day and be warriors and have the resilience to want to continue and still have the energy to want to continue, especially in the global context that we see in the African context, in the national context. And what we've identified is the capacity of Brother Peter and Sister Penyo of the care. And because of the care that is real, that is authentic, they were able to understand the real needs of the learners and the determination for them to find ways. And there's a sense of belief that we'll make it work. We will be able to find ways to solve the learner problems. And we see how they were able to bring different stakeholders. They were able to collaborate, find collaborators that added into the pot of assisting our learners to develop in very difficult circumstances. And probably learners don't even see that they are in difficult circumstances. And for me today, the way that Brother Peter, as well as Sister Penyo, are approaching their teaching as a calling, as a real commitment that's not only for them to do their job, but as a serious business of ensuring that the African learner is given the real opportunity to explore the potential so they can be able to flourish, and equitably so is that they have exemplified being the warriors. And I'm taking learnings because in the last 3 weeks, colleagues, I must be honest, I've been baffled. I've been baffled by the sense of disengagement that we see at amongst our students at university level, and that line, the line, the crossing of the line, it's saying, I'm learning so that I can develop intellectually, so that I can develop the skills and the competencies, and saying, you know what, this AI can do the job for me. And what also, is illuminated with the work that Brother Peter and Sister Pino is doing is this unbelievable complex understanding of the complexities, and be able to identify how in this complexity there are particular skills and resources that are required to be able to walk this journey of solving the problems with the learners as well as the other stakeholders. And that speaks to that, natural, inherent, holistic way of understanding the problems. And really, it's not just understanding basic problems. We see here people who exemplify that easiness of understanding wicked problems and how to unpack them so that we can be able to solve them in a more meaningful way that is, ensured sustainability, that once we have laid down the foundation of particular skills, competencies for our learners, we can continue to build on that. And to our colleagues, our presenters, thank you very, very, very much. And may you be strengthened in your journey, because this is not just a job, but it's clearly a life purpose. And I hope all of us that have joined you, we are inspired to recommit to the purpose of teaching, and really a purpose of recommitting to Africa as a place of hope, recommitting to Africa as a place where there are many opportunities, where there is unbelievable unearthed excellence, unbelievable unearthed potential. And important is that it is our responsibility to do that. We have the opportunity now to make Africa a better place, and we can do it. We just cannot wait for other people to do it for us. So it requires accountability from our side. It requires hard work. It requires commitment. It requires authenticity, and there's that sense of selfness about what we do as our jobs. And I think as educators, we know that we need to walk the talk. That's a hell of a responsibility, but we can't do it unless we walk the talk and see students, see us going into the trenches with them. Thank you very, very much for that inspiration. And in closing, I'd really like to thank everyone who attended the presentations, and I'm thanking you on behalf of the organizing committee that, we really appreciate. Truly grateful to everyone who contributed to the success of today's education conversations. Yes, we got to talk, we got to explore, we got to think, we got to ask questions about educating an African for the 21st century, building resilient education systems for lifelong learning, quality and relevant learning in Africa. And these are the three imperative elements that we need to ensure that our educational learners develop to be resilient and develop skills that they can use, or competencies they can use in the process of lifelong learning. And indeed, we are looking at sustainability futures towards a holistic educational model. I think it's something that we truly have to work around and find, different ways of thinking about it, which then from that different practices can emerge. And I'd like to first express, our sincere thanks to Kagiso Trust, as well as the University of Johannesburg, and to the colleagues at Kagiso Trust, Doctors Mankudi Mwitse, Sizakele Mpatswe, Zandile Mkhutwa, Mandisa Tsilane, as well as Lesedi Malemela, who's been really supportive and guiding us in ensuring that this conversation takes place. And also, I'd like to thank you for your unwavering support and dedication, and your efforts have indeed been instrumental in this event. And we are deeply grateful to the University of Johannesburg, particularly Professor Ketia Sim, my inspirational friend, my visionary friend. But you're not only visionary, you also go into the trenches. Would also like to give thanks to the Department of Education Leadership and Management, along with Carmen Duplessis from the marketing faculty team, Their collaboration has been indeed invaluable. And once again, to our distinguished presenters, Brother Peter Tabichi, for inspiring presentation and really illuminating the importance of us as educators being innovative, because as we are innovative, we are inspiring innovation amongst our youngsters within those difficult circumstances. And you are showing us we cannot give up. We will always find a way to be innovative within our African context. And there's so much that Africa can offer in the way of innovation, because the world has been moving dominantly within the Western Euro paradigm, epistemologies. So yes, there's a wealth of knowledge that we can pull out from Africa. And also to you, Sister Pinyo Koka, for enlightening us on how you've worked this journey of empowering rural education through technology and community involvement in an environment where it would seem impossible, but you use your limited resources in the best possible way. I think that is unbelievable wisdom. And I think for people like you, it's seeing what others like us don't see and being able to put that into practice. And we know that there's some light where there is immeasurable darkness. And thank you very much for inspiring us. And I think for all of us as educators and leaders, we have come to understand the importance of leadership that is enabling, leadership that is supportive, and understanding that you will always have educators that offer on the table what you as a single leader does not have. And hence we do need distributed leadership in environments. We need support for educators who are, capable in doing what, us as leaders cannot do. And we shall focus on building resilience, sustainability, and also future readiness through inclusive and future-ready leadership within our context. Thank you all for your participation and for sharing your knowledge and passion. I believe that together we are indeed paving the way for a bigger, brighter, and more sustainable future in education for Africa. So we are not going to give up on African child. We are not going to give up on Africa. It is all in our hands, and we are all capable of achieving that. Prof. Kate, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sadi, for actually summing that up so beautifully and for giving everybody thanks. But with that, let us say until next time, guys. We have more in store going forward, and we look forward to more engagement. But right now, we leave this conversation with inspiration. We leave it with a commitment to rebrand Africa and to allow our children to thrive as warriors. So with that, a very good afternoon to everybody. Have an amazing, inspiring evening, and I look forward to our next time together. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, colleagues. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye, Pena. I'll be calling you. You need to come and talk.